looking okay for this week, but I think it's time to move forward into our main article, our main topic of the week, which again is TESOPs. And so the article here that really sparked the conversation today is that the financial giant Fidelity is piloting a tokenized employee rewards initiative with Tokensoft. And so Fidelity recently announced this pilot with Tokensoft for an employee rewards initiative. And this was announced through a Tokensoft blog post, and we can really infer that the token itself, which they're calling the BBT token, was created with Fidelity's Bits and Blocks Club, which is a branch of the Fidelity Center for Applied Technology, which is where they're really spending a lot of their innovation resources on leveraging this technology. And so Mason Borda, who's the CEO of Tokensoft, goes on to say that in the post that Tokensoft integrated the BBT token contract into Tokensoft's administration platform, which can then be used by financial institutions like Fidelity so that their employees who can use the BBT token in a closed-loop reward system that's designed to encourage employees to attend internal events and other activities. And so this is fascinating because they're looking, Fidelity is looking to reward their employees for attending events and internal participation and rewarding their employees for whatever they want them, however they want to distribute that token. And they're looking to supply that to the token by leveraging the blockchain and issuing this closed standard security token. And so in the announcement, the BBT token is defined as a ERC 1404 token. And ERC 1404 is an interesting standard that Tokensoft developed on top of the ERC 20 protocol, which is Ethereum, if you're familiar, with the goal of defining a common definition for the technical structure of security tokens on a blockchain. They wanted to build this 1404 and make it the least complicated. From a lot of what I've read, their goal was to make it simple and understandable, and that we can all build other things on top of it if we need, but we need to get a few common things down to agree upon what is a security token in terms of its structure, which sounds good to us because we spend a lot of time looking to define security tokens from the financial perspective. And so it's cool to see that a lot of these different issuance platforms, whether it's Tokensoft or Securitize's DSO protocol or Polymath's ST20, they're looking to provide these smart contracts on top of the Ethereum protocol that really help define what an asset is. And so just if you're interested, there's plenty of information on what an ERC 1404 is and how that's different from ERC 20. I think realistically the most important pieces here from a highly technical level is that the ERC 1404 standard allows for restriction of distribution of the tokens. And so it allows you to use the ERC20, which is super common and understandable for programmers. And then you can take that traditional token structure and say, look, okay, we only want to give this to specific employees, or we only want these specific people to be able to transact with us something. Or in the case of any scalable security token, we only want accredited investors or specific jurisdictions to be able to trade this thing. And that's the standard that Tokensoft is built on top. And so, because of that, we are actually looking to give out our company of the week to these two companies. Herwig, for me, my company of the week is going to be Tokensoft because they're the tech provider. They're the partner to do that, taking a leading role in contributing to the common definition of security tokens. And I can let you go into a little bit of your thoughts on Fidelity.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely, truly excited about this use case. It's something that I've spoken about at universities and even the Fortune 500 companies. And it is one that I think is less talked about in the security token hype of everything. And that's because this is really what I've seen as the first use case. So I want to make it Fidelity, my company of the week, because they are truly pioneers. It is not explicitly clear that this is a tokenized employee stock option pool. But as you have highlighted, because it is an ERC 1404 token, it's hard not to assume or link the two and make the connection, right? So even though there may be reward-like or non-securities-like behaviors for this token, it is in a closed-loop environment, and it is on the ERC 1404 standard. So it would be pretty easy for them, if it isn't already, to turn it into a fully functioning security linked to Fidelity stock.
So we've used this word TESOP a lot. And again, this is something that you've spent so much time researching and developing. Can you explain to us how would a TESOP work in reality?
It's a great question. I usually like to structure it in sort of from three different lenses. In this case, I'm talking about startups or new businesses or small businesses, private companies, really, medium and up, and then of course public companies. And so for a tokenized employee stock option plan for startups, it is almost just a more efficient way to manage their traditional employee stock option plans, which are either done in a very ad hoc kind of as they hire employees way, or they've structured something typically because their venture capitalists have advised so, or because they're experienced entrepreneurs and they've dedicated a pool of shares for their employees. Regardless, it's always a manual process. It's a manual analog process that is typically very inefficient. And so by digitizing this process, they can already take advantage of managing their shares for their employees, and they're specifically issuing stock options and things like that in a much easier fashion. But furthermore, it also benefits the employees more. In this case, we're talking about actually giving them liquidity. For a startup, it's still the same issue as the same reason that investors are excited about security tokens, which is stock options are liquid. They are only ever really exercised when they're either about to expire or in the case of an IPO or some kind of liquidity event like an acquisition. Now, through either a partnership with a third-party exchange or simply by developing their own private market, these startups can now offer some form of immediate liquidity to their employees, which again is a huge benefit that specifically for startups is not something they experience commonly. And the same can be said for private companies. It just really, you amplify the problem 100 times over. The use case I like to give in this case is actually the super grocer chain called Publix, which is actually the largest employee-owned company in the world. It has over 200,000 employees. That's because even their grocers get stock within the company. And you can imagine it's the same issue. They are managing an ESOP for hundreds of thousands of people in a dramatically, manually, and inefficient way. And there is definitely a same issue of a lack of liquidity because Publix is not listed on any public exchange where they can simply assign the shares for their employees to go and sell off on. And so, of course, whether it's Publix or much, much smaller companies, whether you've got hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of employees, again, digitizing your employee stock option plan has a lot of efficiency benefits while also creating liquidity benefits for employees. And of course, finally, there are the public companies, which also benefit from that same digitization because they already act like semi-private markets and also suffer from the same issues of scale that these major private companies do, which again is because their governance controls are typically largely manual. So all in all, I think TESOPs are a terrific example of security tokens because you can highlight both the governance efficiencies of digitizing and managing a stock option plan, but you also get that value of liquidity and being able to create a market for those shares. Just imagine if you have hundreds of employees and maybe even those employees have different stock option plans and strike prices because of the time that they've been at the company. In this case, we see Fidelity using it as a way to incentivize internal participation at events. Perhaps it could be used for other activities such as doing peer reviews for fellow employees or other internal actions. It could even be used in the future to even send someone's compensation on chain through the same sort of account system that holds both your tokens that represent your stock options as well as potentially how you get paid. So there's a lot of ways you can even go very advanced with a tokenized employee stock option pool with a TESOP. But this is, we're early days here, Kyle. We're keeping it to the bare bones. At the end of the day, simply tokenizing an existing ESOP, we believe will yield many efficiencies both for the company as well as for the employees. Hopefully that makes sense. Any comments or questions, Kyle?
I love it. I love the idea of it. I think it's fascinating. And I think the one thing that we can highlight as well is that in both of your examples of private companies, when we're talking about startups or when we're talking about the largest private companies that are employee-owned like Publix, they don't need to necessarily have these tokens on a live public exchange. They can have a private buyback system that allows for their employees to either buy more stock if they want to buy more stock from other employees, or the company itself could buy back shares. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have to go public tomorrow, and that the only way that this works is if you go to an exchange and start your thing trading to everybody. It doesn't necessarily need to work that way at all. This essentially, in terms of tokenizing your ESOP, is really just about managing your employees. And if you've got 200,000 employees that are all shareholders, being able to manage each one of those shareholders in a more efficient way is incredibly effective, incredibly useful. I'm sure it would save them a ton of money in terms of managing that, whether it's through manpower or writing scripts and programs that can actually programmatically do things, as you said. It's a fantastic use case. It's really, really exciting. I know that there are some companies in the space working on cap table management and some of these other processes. And it's exciting to see that Tokensoft and Fidelity are working on a project here. I'm sure that it will be successful because we love the idea and think that as long as they can structurally build it correctly and actually leverage it for their program, I'm excited to see the results.
Me too. I'm sure this will kick off many other interested, specifically, I think on the larger side, corporations, both private and public, on how they might, leverage a TESOP. And with that, that's our show today, everyone. Thank you for listening. As always, I hope you tune in again next week. And as always, please leave feedback, comments, reach out to us on Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as directly participate on our community at stomarket.com.
That's a wrap. Security Token Show, episode 22.